Yeah, just do a quick, Ellen, how nice to see you. I haven't seen you in forever.
We need to Zoom together more often.
I know.
I was cleaning my desk. I had class until 10, and when the MNAFI board meeting started, but I was listening and I was involved and I was chatting, but I was like turbo cleaning my desk. I wish I'd taken a before and after, because I'm like, I apparently need meetings more often to listen to while I clean.
Speaking of cleaning, I started the Netflix series Made. And the only reason I'm mentioning that is because I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of, and I'm watching this and I'm watching this, because we could spend a whole lot, we could do that, right? We could have just an hour talking about TV and movies. But no, it's how often do you see parenting education in the media, like in public, in popular culture? Like you just don't.
Is it in there?
It is in like episode 2. So this young woman is in a domestic violence situation. She takes her kid. And so she's trying to make ends meet and it really is very good to kind of put your privileged face in if you were in this situation, the mountain of paperwork to apply for food stamps and all of this stuff and needing a car and all that. But anyway, one of the things is that she is required to show to the court to kind of get custody of her kid that she's gone to parenting education classes and she needs like a certificate from whatever it is. And so it is this guy doing it. You can tell this guy must do these classes like every week and says the same thing. But I'll have to find the episode just watch it, because it's only one episode and it's like a small segment of it. But because he's talking about kids needing consistent environments, and I think the other big concept that he's teaching is about parental monitoring. But the way he does it, and then these and he's addressing them, yes, moms, and he's just like putting the guilt anyway. So just an aside. So that's Netflix's Made, just episode 2. I haven't finished the series, so I don't know how good it really is overall. But anyway, but let's just do a really quick check-in. And let's just do for the viewing audience at home, just a quick who you are. And let's do a crappy to happy scale, because the very first thing we're going to talk about today, we're going to cycle back to last Friday's conversation that Becca addressed at the very end of our session. And I think, as someone who has prepared parenting educators and who is deeply immersed in the artistry of education, I think Becca's issue about transitioning and giving focus to non-curriculum plan topics at the moment that they arise is just key and critical to everyone's learning. And I'd love to revisit that, as we promised. So before we do that, though, let's do just a really quick check-in of who you are, where you're from, and on the 1 to 7, 1 being crappy to 7 being happy. Where are you today? I'm Susan Walker, currently from the University of Minnesota for 97 more days. But and on a crappy to happy scale, because I'm with all of you, even though I have a broken wrist, I am at a 6.8. And I'm going to turn it over to Lori.
Okay. The 2 oldest here, Susan, first. Is that it?
Yeah. Age before beauty. Right.
Okay, Lori Erstead, parent educator from Mankato. And I don't know how to answer this. I just turned in my resignation for retirement this week. So, and for just a moment, my eyes were watering because this has been my life's work. And, it just kind of hit me. I have 117 days left, but I'm scared of the unknown, but I know it's time and I know it's the right decision. Definitely. Okay. Sarah.
Sarah, me? Which Sarah?
Oh, Sarah Hardy. Yep.
Okay. Sarah Hardy, currently with Rosemont Upper Valley Egan. I am off on Fridays, and I'm really glad I don't have to deal with the little snowfall we just had. I'm going to go 6.1. 6.5. I'm good.
Oh, I didn't give a number, did I? Okay, I'm gonna go 7.
Oh, and I choose Jennifer.
Jennifer Krause. I'm parent educator in Moorhead and also in my last semester of the parent and family education program. And I usually don't get to be here on Fridays, so I'm super excited. And I would say I'm at a 7.25.
Sorry,
how
Jennifer.
about-
You usually pick the next
I'll
person.
get this. I'll get this. Becca.
I'm Becca. I am a parent educator in District 622, which is Maplewood, Oakdale, North St. Paul. And my answer, I wasn't sure, are we on a scale of 1 to 7 or 1 to 10? Because that gives me a different answer depending on that. If it's just 1 to 7, I'm maybe at a 5. It's been a super stressful week. And after having a condo that we didn't want to have for, well, I bought it almost 20 years ago, but 1-bedroom condo that we couldn't sell after my son was born because the market crashed, and we put it on the market on Saturday and got an accepted offer on Sunday, and are doing our signing paperwork today, which is like the end of this really long slog of being way underwater financially and maybe pooping some costs, but super stressful because I have ADHD and my husband has ADHD, and getting all of our paperwork in order is like a nightmare. So like, I'm just really worried something's going to go wrong and one of us is going to have forgotten something important. So I think tomorrow I'll be feeling better than right now. I will be going straight from this meeting to this pre-signing thing at the title office. So yeah, it's been a very up and down week. Sarah Alcock.
Hi, I'm Sarah Alcock. I'm with Burnsville Egan Savage District 191. I would say I'm not quite a 7. I would be, because I was able to get on today because my baby's class, all of them were just a little tired and needed to wrap up early. But I have had a week where where printing never works and copying doesn't work, and I just feel like I'm late to everything. So I'm going to go with a 6.5. And I'm going to go with Nikki.
Nikki Murphy, and I am a parent and family educator in Robbinsdale. And I will go with a 6. I think today we're having a virtual learning day. And so it is catch-up time, but I think it also puts in perspective how many things are outstanding or just need to be addressed and what needs to be done. And sometimes it's a lot. So yeah, and I got on late, so I don't know who still needs to introduce. I'll choose.
I'll go Nikki. All right, I'm Shelley Doran, a parent educator in 196, which is Rosemont, Apple Valley, Egan. I'd say I'm a 5 today. I was home with a stomach flu yesterday, but I'm feeling better. I'm back to work today, so I'm getting up there. Ellen.
Hello, I'm parent educator in Northfield and feeling pretty good today. It was a pretty good week. If we have time at the end, I'll tell you what happened to my dad this week. The dad that's been causing some problems. Anyway, I won't do it now. I don't want to take up time, but I'm probably on a scale of 1 to 7. I'm probably a 5 today. Pretty good. And I have my own countdown, Susan and Lori, and I'm going to be in Hawaii 15 days from today. So, except our school is dropping the mask mandate, and I am freaking out that my daughter is going to get COVID. She's boosted, but I still have to wear a mask in my building. My son has already had COVID. My husband works in the basement. He's not going to get COVID. So please just say a prayer to the health gods for me that nobody gets sick in the next 2 weeks, or I'm going to kill. Not going to say that. I'm going to kill someone. I don't know who. Kidding. That's very violent. And I choose Megan.
I am Megan Gingle. I am parent ed in Roseville School District. And I feel good today. Today's a good day. We had really productive meetings today, so probably a 7. I have to choose someone. Carissa, have you gone yet? Okay, sorry.
I can figure out how to unmute. I'm Carissa, I'm in Mounds View, parent ed. I'm tired. I'm probably a 5 today. Fridays are, I teach a baby class. I haven't taught a baby class in 8 years or something. And then I also teach a movers class, which is like, well, at the beginning of the year, they were like 10 to 18 months. I've never taught that kind of class before. I'm just feeling like I'm not doing very good with it. And they are movers. They are exhausting. But I mean, parents are there and stuff, but it's hot. And I'm just like, I'm kind of worn out after them. So Fridays are a wear out for me day. And babies are amazing. They're so excited to be here, but yeah. So, Maggie, have you gone yet?
Hello, my name is Maggie Beaupre DeYoung, and I am an academic advisor, too many A's, at the academic advisor at the UMN and the Parent and Family Ed program. And I used to be a parent educator in Minneapolis Public Schools. And I 1 to 7, I'd say, yeah, I'm right by where Chris is. 4 or 5, we've had the stomach flu through our family. So I have actually a little baby, a little 11-month-old above me trying to sleep it off. But yeah, really bad. I don't know if other people have been, the stomach flu has been going through, but whew, it's a rough one. And it's just like everywhere. Anyways, so that's where I'm at. And then, just anxiously awaiting to see if what the strike situation is for Minneapolis and St. Paul, that we have a couple of student teachers that are in those districts. And so just seeing what's going to happen next. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here though. I haven't had to miss a couple Fridays. And so it's good to see everybody.
St. Paul did vote to strike last night, like 78%. Was
it? Okay. I was going through Facebook while I was trying to get on this meeting, but like sick baby. So I'm like, I need to catch up, but okay. And any news on Minneapolis?
I don't know.
I thought they voted to strike as well. I heard both of them did.
Okay.
But that was CCO this morning, so I'm not sure.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
And I think Sarah Hardy, have you gone? Okay.
Oh yeah, has anybody not gone?
I think Sarah might be.
Okay.
I went, I'm good. 6.5.
Oh, okay, good. Well, great. So, we had, so Becca, do you want to bring us back to last week and the situation? I have thought about you so much all week long, and the situation, but I appreciate your sharing, because it's sort of encouraged me to reflect on those times in my own teaching career where situations like that have happened. And I have to say, and some of the things that I personally have observed in ECFE, where magic has happened because it's sort of like an off-road trip that has ended up in Disneyland, just amazing. So anyway, so Becca will take over, and she'll remind us of kind of how this started.
So 2 weeks ago in my Tuesday morning class, I had just started using Susan's, we did a 1 to 10 check-in, just numbers, which was kind of a new practice for me, but a good way to get some feedback from people who aren't sharers and who are quiet, because they don't have to say a word, but they can still communicate. So I really liked that. And a mom who I had checked in with during parent-child interaction and was doing okay. She's often tired because She's got issues with 3 boys who come in and out of her bed at night, so she doesn't get enough sleep. But she was doing okay during parent-child interaction. And when we went around and did numbers, she put up a 1. And from 1 to 10, we had never seen anyone do below a 3. And this is a very, very quiet mom who doesn't usually talk. It's hard to explain because she's just really different than me, who's like talker, but she's very much participating. So she's very there and connected and involved with what's going on in class, but she's also very reserved and quiet. So she doesn't share very much. And so she put up a 1, and I asked her, I was like, do you feel comfortable sharing what's going on? And her eyes welled up. And during ECFE, during the parent-child interaction time, she had gotten a text from one of her best friends that their other friend's 18-year-old had committed suicide.
Oh God.
So this was like, when I say this was fresh news, this was less than half an hour old news for this mom. The child who died had been her ring bearer in her wedding. And it was just like, whoa, how do we move on from that? We don't, we stop right here. Yeah, so it was a rough class, because that's deep and dark, and there's no suggestions. There's no, how do you fix this in any way? Lots of sympathy and tears and dealing with fear, because this is kind of every parent's worst nightmare. So what started last week at the end of our session here, just saying a thank you to Susan for reminding me to do something different, like a number check-in, because this mom definitely would not have shared had she not had that opportunity to put up a 1 and let us know, whoa, something's going on with you. And so I just really appreciated that. But it did kind of take us onto the topic of, what do you do when you've got a lesson planned, but there's like a big need, there's a big thing going on, and how do you respond to that when you don't have answers and you're not prepared and you have no idea what to say. So that's the topic.
I just put in the chat that I have Kleenex I have 3 locations for Kleenex. So so it's not like, where's the Kleenex? You're not making a big show. It's just the Kleenex box appears. Sometimes other parents grab the Kleenex. I had a mom share with us that she miscarried that morning. And we all stopped, and all the moms, I mean, she cried and they all cried. So it was like one of those things, where I think everyone has been touched by a miscarriage. And so, but she was sitting kind of by herself, and she was kind of a more, I don't want to say awkward mom, but how you always kind of get those quirky moms. And she was kind of sitting by herself, and I moved my chair and I put my arm like around her, and I was like rubbing her back, because she just looked alone. So I think in these instances, I think proximity helps, even just sitting, even if you don't touch that person. I think in these moments, it's just giving them the Kleenex and sitting near them helps them feel better. And then being like, are you okay with me sitting here, or do you want some space? So that's just immediate, like in the moment of, oh crap, what do I do? I think those are the 2 things that I'm always like, Kleenex, comfort.
When I was teaching at Robbinsdale, this was pre-COVID, we had an active shooter drill one morning, and everyone, all the children did it, the parents did it. And in that particular class, we had a pregnant mom, and while we were all, hiding back in the corner, she started crying, which, made complete sense to us, but it turned my lesson on end. And we just, but I had no answers for her. What kind of world are you bringing your children into that they have to deal with active shooter drills? No.
I'm really sorry that happened, Becca. That's really tough. And I feel like in moments when stuff like that has happened in my classes, it is like, most classes are pretty good. Those are the most important opportunities that we have as humans together in space to just support one another. And it's, Susan, when you talk about sometimes parent educators end up feeling a little bit like faith leaders, or like they end up having this loyalty and of parents, and this like we're the true north for parents in a way, in a way that is similar to the way spiritual leaders can be for people as well. And I think that those are the classes when that is possible, really. And it's such an honor to be in the presence of those moments. And the only thing I would add to Kleenex and closeness is a lot of breath and a lot of naming all of the feelings. Like that's the first step after just taking it in, right? Is starting to, I think, just name all of the feelings that when something like that stirs in the person, but also the whole room. And just honoring, like making space for all of that raggedness, and not fixing, not, right.
Yep. Thanks, Sarah. I was also thinking about what Sarah Alcock was saying, because, Sarah, it's my first response about the shooter drill was, at least that mom was in a collective space to experience that, right? And I also heard you talk about, well, I didn't have the answers, right? And to Sarah Hardy, to your point, if you think about it, spiritual leaders don't have answers. Like, they're not problem solvers, but they do name emotions, they do name the feelings, and mostly they give that space and that time. And it won't be a surprise to any of you that I'm one that is not comfortable with that space and that quiet. Like, just like 2 minutes ago or a minute ago before Sarah talked, like there was that sort of silence, right? And there's that big part of me that is just like, what should I jump in? And fighting that urge has been one of the best parts of my own professional and personal growth, to just give that space to let it erupt, right? To let what comes next erupt and let it go. And I would say that either the moments that I've facilitated or the moments that I've observed that have felt that magical has come from that silence, that space to just let it happen, and not and respond to that impulse to be the problem solver, right? To try to fix things, when for a lot of these things, there's no answer. There's no, like, Becca, for your situation, like with the mom, I mean.
And that was the exact same hardest thing for me, Susan. What you reflect about yourself is, I feel like my primary role in life, like from the time I was a kid, has been to be a comforter. So like, I want people to feel good. I want to make things better. Like, that's kind of what I do. And I had to allow space for the horrible discomfort of, nope, like, and maybe there is a little bit of comfort in that silence of being heard. But I feel like if I would have tried to say something comforting in any way, it would have negated the depth and importance of how big a thing was going on. It couldn't be quick, and there couldn't be words in it. So we had a lot more silence than I usually feel comfortable with. And I tried to let other parents kind of share what they felt comfortable sharing, or they were, instead of me trying to lead things. I felt like in that situation, I was almost more of a participant or an observer, with kindness and compassion, but I wasn't leading anything. It was just like what needed to happen had to just happen.
I wasn't on last week, so what was the response from the other members of the class?
It was wonderful. So there was more silence than we usually have. It kind of felt like everything had been punched in the gut. One of the other parents in this group also has teenagers. And she just started to bawl because this is so close to home for a lot of and a lot of us, including myself, have kids who are struggling with mental health. So like this really was powerfully scary stuff that couldn't be fixed. We talked a little bit about our fears and, you know, there's no way to fix this, but what can we do to try to do what we can, what is in our power to help our kids so that they don't get to this place. I tried to make sure none of the conversation went into anything even close to parent blaming. And thankfully it did not. It didn't go anywhere near there. It's like there was no why didn't this mom do something or anything like that. There was mostly just a lot of compassion and how can we give our kids what they need so that they don't get to this horrible place of desperation. And it was being willing to leave things uncomfortable without closure. There wasn't closure. There was just some kind of uncomfortable conversation that was cloaked in compassion. And that was probably the most important piece. And I felt honored that this mom, who is quiet and reserved, shared, because it really was kind of a sacred space then, that vulnerability. So, yeah.
I think the one other thing I would add besides the comfort and the Kleenexes is this would be a good time to check in during the next week, you know, to just see how she's doing.
Mhm.
Reach out to her in an email or something.
You know, from some of the things that I've observed, you know, I'm a big context person and, you know, and I think of also that dynamic of the class, right? The class membership and how much people know each other. So let's say that happens on week 2 of a new class and 60% of the parents don't know each other or something like that. Well, is the person going to share at all, right? And so they may share with you personally, but they may not share, you know, to the full group. Or just that difference of if somebody is that much in need and they do share with this full group, well, there's a big difference. I mean, I observed just this amazing situation where there was a mom who wanted to talk about sort of stopping breastfeeding her child after a certain time. And it was very emotional for herself as well as with her child. And it was just incredible to watch the support that was offered to her, but also the dynamics of, you know, fathers who were in the room and the fathers kind of knowing not to talk or, you know, that they could be a presence and supportive, but without adding stuff. But in that case, it was a group, as I understood it from the parenting educator, that had been, you know, like 80% of them had been together for several years, right? And so she didn't need to do much. She could kind of, because I talked to her afterwards and she said, with this group, I knew they would do it, like they would take care of themselves. So I would wait to see if there's anything. But I just wanted to sort of, that another challenge to what we do in finessing, and Greta, I'm using your word finesse, right? To finessing this is also kind of reading the room, like knowing our context. And that just adds that layer of difficulty.
Well, and I think to add to that is that sometimes you get oversharers. And I feel like that could be a whole other conversation. And so you get someone who shares something completely inappropriate. You can't be like, okay, moving on, but you have to move on because it's turning into, you know, so that could be and especially if you have a group, you know, that's only been together for a couple of weeks. And I tell the story about how I was student teaching and I was filling in I subbed. It was my cooperating teacher had an emergency hysterectomy. And I was like, I'll take the Thursday night class. I know the families, it's fine. And this dad came in and it was his second class. And he told everyone that his daughter had killed a cat the 2 weeks prior. She stomped it to death because it scratched her. Yeah. And here's little baby parent educator Ellen. I don't even have my license yet. Thank God there was a Rice County social services social worker in that class. And I think she knew that I was in crisis. I was like, literally, you guys, I don't even know what my face looked like, right? But there's those moments too, where you just don't, it's coming out of left field. You know what I mean? So that could be a whole other conversation, but there is that constant, like, can this group handle what we're about to talk about? Can they not? And that's hard because sometimes you think a group has got it and they don't support that person well. Ugh. So yeah.
And then there are those beautiful times when a parent who has been languishing a little bit, if you can languish a little bit, comes up with the golden question for the parent in offering support for the first time across the table to another parent. And you're like, yes, right? So there's also that can come from the journey that I had that happen this week. It was awesome. So happy for that mom. She's like, I have an idea. She asked the best question. So great.
You know, and I want to turn to Greta, you know, so when those things too happen, I mean, and for all of you, just, you know, give yourselves huge hugs because you're creating that context. Again, that's that thing that, yeah, I think it's something we can learn, but it's something that we evolve into through our own development and observation in that. But it is so undercounted and it is so incredibly important. And so, you know, just, you know, how you create that context of trust and connection so that that parent is going to look across the table and offer that support when they hadn't before, right? That's themselves being vulnerable and putting aside all of their own thing of being judged and stuff like that. So anyway, Greta, were you going to say something?
She was just celebrating. I can't remember what happened, but I, you know, who knows how many years ago it was, but I remember something happening in a class and the moms or other parents in the group were amazing in supporting. And I sent them a message and I left out the mom that was grieving, you know, and I said, you guys were amazing today. Thank you for the support and for the hugs. I mean, and they were surrounding this mom and just love, you know. So I think they also need kudos in these moments. Like, I could not have done it without you, the rest of the class. So I think in those moments too, thanking everybody who was involved is huge.
I was just going to add to that, and this conversation is so great. And I really want to just like share the recording with our students, because this is such a huge thing that like some people just have that natural ability, but a lot of times, like as a parent educator, we figure out, oh, I wish I would have said something different. I'm going to try this next time. You know, like we're human too. So and to say like, it's okay to just be like, you know what, I don't really know what to say right now. I'm really just sitting with what you said and trying to take it in. And also know that like that parent, by just saying it out loud, like that's part of the healing and processing. Like the fact that they even were able to just, I got it out, you know, like then not that the work is done, but we've done some of the work of just like providing that space that they've been able to say it. And so just to have that too, of like, we don't need to have an answer. It's just that, you know, they've provided the answer for themselves by just being able to get it out. So yeah, that this is like magical. I know, I'm just so glad that we're having this conversation.
I do feel like we always feel like we need to solve everybody's problems, or at least, you know, help them figure it out, but we really don't, right? Like that's what I'm hearing everybody talking about it. And I mean, I know that answer, but it's really good just to hear it again. And just so it brings it back to the forefront of, we don't have to solve all the problems. We can just listen and validate and facilitate, right? You know, so that's what I'm hearing, which is good for me.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, Shelley. Even just this week, I apologize. Is my internet terrible? Can you even hear me?
Yep.
I'm gonna
A little
I'm gonna turn
choppy.
my camera off. I'm gonna turn my camera off. It'll probably be better. This week in a class, I was just doing a round the table icebreaker, so to speak, and like 5 different hot topics came up. And just in those moments, I was like, okay, do you adjust and tackle these hot topics, or do you just let them fly by or whatever? And Shelley, I was feeling that way. I was like, okay, these can just go. I mean, I could say maybe another time we can hit on these topics, or we can come back to them at some point, but I didn't need to address it right then and there. And I didn't need to brainstorm, and I didn't need to do all of the, use all those different techniques at that moment. That they could just go, and they could just go by, and that's okay. Yeah, that was hard though, because you want to stop and talk about it, and you don't always have to. Yeah.
I had an experience for myself that I overshared too much in a class, and I did not mean to. It just came out. A very good friend of mine killed her children and then killed herself. And I thought I was fine, I mean, I wasn't fine, but I was still needing to work. And I had taken some time off, and I'd come back to work, and it just like hit me, as grief does in an unknown moment. And there was a child who walked into our center who looked very similar to my friend's son. And I lost it. Like I couldn't even excuse myself to the bathroom. I just froze in the moment and just lost it. And parents were so gracious, and they just like wrapped around me. It was amazing. And I apologized for oversharing. I'm like, I am working on this. This is really hard for me. I did not expect to come to work and just lose it. This process is not about me. But a parent said to me, you are also human. You are also a person. You are also a parent. They had just so many wonderful things to share. And I was so thankful, because we walk that line of not oversharing, right? Of like pulling in situations that are appropriate, or giving an example in the appropriate context of a conversation. And I just blew it right out of the water. I was just like, I'm so sorry. But I was so nervous that my big, strong, uncomfortable emotions would just, I don't know. I was so worried that it would just, I don't know, just keep them silent, or make it uncomfortable. And they were just so kind. They shared their own stories. They were just there. And I haven't done that since, but it was a fear of mine of just like oversharing, and I did it. And the results, they were just wonderful, wonderful families that just were so supportive. And this was probably about 5 years ago this happened. And I recently had a family return who had other children in that class, but have now had more children. And she was like, I was just wondering how you were doing. She's like, you shared in our class what happened to your friend and her children. And I was just like, she goes, that has just always stuck with me. And I always just wonder, every once in a while, I just pop into my head and I just wonder how you're doing. And I was so thankful. I was so thankful that we could also rely on this community, that it's not about us, but that there is aspects of it that are just so real. And I think just human,
It made me think, Megan, I posted the Hopeful Warrior link is about the grief ball. Have any of you seen that before? Grief is like a ball and it hits a button, and the button is what causes the pain. And at the beginning, the ball is it's in a box, and the ball is really big and it hits the button a lot, but eventually it gets smaller, but it's still there. But when it hits the button, it's the same amount of pain. So look at that analogy. That I only learned about that, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago or so. And I think that's what you said. It was triggering for you. It had happened a while ago, but the button, that little guy triggered you, and the button hit and you fell apart. And I think for our parents, especially with trauma, there is something triggering, and that ball is small and the trauma might be far away, but the button still gets hit. I have a mom right now whose father was murdered 5 years ago, and the people who did it have still not stood trial. And it keeps getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. So I shared with her the grief ball. And she was like, oh my gosh, she said, this is exactly what I've been going through. Because she told me, she's like, if I ever come in and I'm a hot mess, it's something trial related. It was her, and so I think it's really just important to have that in our head, because it's, you just never know. And it doesn't have to be something that happened today or yesterday or last week. It can be like what happened to you. You know what I mean?
Would
So-
you say that you would use that video? Because I always do a lesson on grief and death. And I always preface it to our families, like, this might not be relevant to you right now, but it is something that we should talk to our children about prior to it happening, because you don't want to have to figure it out when you're in the midst of
for sure.
grief. So would
For
that be a
sure.
video you would share in that?
Well, this is actually just a picture. It's just pictures. It was
Oh,
actually
okay.
originally a Twitter. It was originally a Twitter thing.
Oh, okay.
But that link has all of the pictures in it. But yeah, I would absolutely talk to parents about this for sure. And I always do. And I give them books, and I'm like, you know what? Put the Goodbye book by Todd Parr on your shelf, because you might not need it today. But if you lose a goldfish or a cat or a dog or a neighbor or a grandma, like it's a wonderful book to have on your shelf. So I would absolutely share that. And I would also share it in the context of kids sometimes bring out the worst things of your childhood. And so that trauma, that button might get pushed by your kids. Like, that's a trigger, So I would even share that as an example of that. So I think that grief button is, it's amazing.
Thank you, everyone, for all this powerful sharing. I mean, this is why I believe in ECFE so much, and I'm trying to build this ECFE-alike model here. I think this the community building, this community belonging is one. It's actually, I think this is so big part of the support, along with knowledge and skill we provide to the parents. And it is so important. And I observed many other parent programs, right? So they offer 7 sessions, program is done, and or like 10 sessions, or parents in the group, they don't build that kind of a connection. So they don't have that kind of social emotional support as ECFE does. So I feel this is so powerful, and I really believe in ECFE model. Thank you so much, everyone.
It's why I really appreciate having classes that basically run a year long, which I do. We have 2 semesters and you have to re-register, but it's the same class. Because just like Susan mentioned, when you get hard stuff and you don't know people, oh my gosh, it's so much harder to process. And a parent who needs to share something, being unsure if they should or not, in that uncomfortable space, like it's really nice when there's enough time to develop that feeling of safety in vulnerability. This mom whose friend's son died was in my class last year too. So she didn't have a 2-year-long connection with the other parents, which did with me. And I think that helped a little. There were also a couple other parents in that group who, even though it was their first year with me as their teacher, were just those parents who are super participators, like in a way, like full of compassion and understanding and listening and really involved in the class. And that makes all the difference of being able to feel safe and heard right away.
Becca, I was thinking that, and I appreciate the context of that parent and your connection, and then the parent with the rest of the class, because that year with you, and this gets back to that point about sort of our instructive presence and, what we do, is my guess is that in that time with you, she learned that she could trust you, that by opening up to people she didn't necessarily know, that you would take care of her, right? That you would continue to create a space where, as you said, and I think it was beautiful when you said, you're kind of on guard for that parent shaming, right? The parent blaming of why didn't this happen? And why didn't, which is so easy for groups to devolve to. And again, I think it speaks to the role that we play. I certainly see it with my undergraduate students. And I mean, I had a student in a comment said, I've never felt so seen, in a class. And that it snaps you back to that power, that the good, very positive power that you have just in your being a decent human being, right? Learning people's names, right? Making those personal connections that we can't minimize. And, for everybody in this call, right? I mean, like that we do so easily just in what we do, but that oftentimes in creating professionals, we do need to train some people to kind of put their egos down, or to, not be so worried, just lead with yourself or do whatever, right? But again, just that amazing ability to create that context of safety and connectedness so that people can grow, right? So so even if she wasn't connected with those parents for a long time, she had some time with you that she learned that you would take care of her. Yeah.
I have a thought and a question both. Just kind of piggybacking on what Susan's saying about that relationship that the parent had for that whole year prior to the year that she wound up in this group that's current. It just reminds me of that quote about people don't care what you know until they know that you care, right? And so we are all doing this work all the time, and we're building community, and we're helping them to know that just the bottom line is that we care, and that we'll navigate that day to day with them and by their side because we care. And these experiences, while they're really, really, really hard, they do play into that understanding, that safety and security and the nurturing to know that we care. So that was my thought that I wanted to share, but I have a question too. I love the analogy of the grief ball. And I have one other analogy to share, and I don't know actually where I heard it. It might've been from you. And I don't know if anyone has any links. I haven't actually Googled it to see, who wrote about it, but I heard an analogy that I really appreciate that I've shared with some families, and that is that the analogy of grief to a backpack, that we have experiences that we've had, and we'll always carry that backpack. And sometimes that backpack is really, really, really heavy and we carry it. And sometimes the backpack is light, and sometimes, the weight of it is just too much to bear. And other times we can reach back and grab out a memory and laugh and play. And it's beautiful. And just, you could go on and on with the backpack analogy, but I've appreciated that because I think that it really does honor that this idea of it's always there, like you're saying, Ellen, like the ball is in the box, and it's just those triggers, right? That sometimes something gets that trigger, but the backpack is always there. We always carry it.
Does anybody else have anything on this? I saw Greta's question, and I'd like to connect to that before we leave. Oh, and so we can talk about it, but she's raised it, so we'll talk about it next week. Is that okay? Okay, great. So just notice Greta's question about reporting over in chat, and then we'll talk about that next week. So this has been such a phenomenal conversation. So is there, we've touched on, Becca, how has this been for you?
It's been good. I still sometimes now, 2 weeks later, feel a little like unsure about how to do helpful follow-up with this mom. And I think for this individual, doing a private check-in, like during parent-child, not in front of the group, it just be like, how are you doing? And letting her shrug and say not great, to me, and then not asking anything in front of the group is what's best for her. So that's kind of what I've been doing. I don't want the group to think I don't care, and I haven't brought it up again, but I also know that her needs are, she's just much more reserved and quiet and really hates to have the spotlight on her. So she probably doesn't want to talk about it. So I'm trying to navigate that, but I think just the knowing that she can talk to me and that I'm still thinking about it and that I care is probably what she needs right now.
I mean, these are really hard. I mean, there's no, there's no chapter in a book. There's no workbook, for stuff like this. I'm sorry that Mary Kay actually isn't with us today because, as Mary Kay has shared with us, her other vocation is that she is a pastor. And I benefit so much from what Mary Kay shares because I think in her pastoral work, it speaks so directly to the emotional connection and support work that we do with families. And she has this marvelous way of blending her long experience as a parenting educator with her work as a pastor. And I think speaking to that, those ways and giving us all some confidence. Because there are, it's almost like when those things come up with parents and there's no solutions, you're just giving space. Similarly for us, there's no right way, there's no one way, and you just have to trust that you're doing the best that you can. And I think kind of default to that. I've had my own experience, with certainly not this, but the day after the election of 2016, where I woke up that morning and I had to teach an undergraduate class at 10 and I was just a wreck. I was just an emotional wreck. And I talked to my friend who was the undergraduate coordinator and I said, I can't teach, right? But I am in this thing where I felt like I needed permission, right? And he just said, oh, like if you just take care of you, if you can't be there, you can't be there. But a student had spoke to me the day before when we were all following, sort of election buzz and voting stuff about mental health needs of students and would I share something with the class. So I kind of felt like I should go, or I needed to be there for my students to kind of be there for her. Because at that point at the U, there was like all kinds of bad stuff going on. It was, anyway, so it gave me a focus, and I went in there and I think I spoke to the class. I started and I just lost it. I just was a blubbering mess, and I surprised myself by how much my emotion was coming out, right? But I also realized that I didn't care. Like I didn't need to be professional at that time and run the class and I just said, and because also on campus, you're not supposed to be political and you're supposed to remain neutral. And that like students have their own, and I was just honest with them. I just defaulted to personal honesty. And I just said, this is where I'm at today. And it is impossible for me to hold class as usual. And And so if you want to leave, please do. Like that, you don't have to be here today. If this is a space where you would like to stay and share or talk or just use the classroom however you would like it, please do that too. And it is one of the proudest moments of my career because it was authentic and I just let it go. And for all of those, sort of like, are you doing the right thing? And, and especially at the university, man, there is so much about doing things a certain way and being sort of, some backlash and stuff like that, but you just don't care. Like you get to a point with some of these things where the rules don't matter because you are just in that moment and you have to be authentic and you have to be yourself and take care of yourself, but also, again, not by monopolizing and letting the students go. Oh, there's the thank you for that, Maggie. Hi, sweetie. Oh. Anyway, so it's just that it was such a powerful time, but I do think my two lessons from there was the importance of allowing ourselves to be authentic in moments, right? And letting the rules just fly out the window because we can read the room and we can take care of ourselves. But the other thing was, it was really, really helpful for me to have my friend to call right on the way in and just say, I know I should be there, but I'm just feeling like I can't. And I need some direction here. Right. And then to have that validation of, and so I would wish that for all of us. And that's again, why I really appreciate Becca bringing this up, that I almost wish that we had like a hot button or like a text line or something like that, that I just wish for all of you that when you're in those moments, and it's just like, I have to go into class and I'm not really sure and kind of feel like this, like, who do I, so I just hope you have somebody that you can do. So.
I'm going to have to go soon, but is Ellen still here? Ellen, were you going to share about your Tuesday dad?
Oh, yeah.
His wife sent a message saying, we want to sign up for spring. And my coordinator said, you cannot sign up for spring unless your husband agrees to wear his mask appropriately. That means over his nose, and that your daughter tries to wear a mask. He came in on Tuesday. He was wearing his mask over his mouth and nose for the first time. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Did not have a mask on the 3-year-old, wasn't even trying. I was like, okay, baby steps, right? Baby steps. We get into parent time and our district is dropping the mask mandate K-12, but my building is still is mandating it. I have a lot of school agers in that class. So one of the moms said, just to clarify, our kiddos in school don't have to, but we need to here. I said, yes, that's correct. Because the ability to vaccinate, that blah, blah, blah. Like we know, right? He starts spouting off, swearing and not wild swearing, like GD it. And it's real dumb. I mean, he had a lot of under his breath stuff. And, that's so stupid. This is such BS, blah, 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 blah. And I, stupid me, I started to reason. I was like, well, the kiddos here are at a higher risk. He's like, oh, that's for families to figure out. And then I was just said, you know what? We are not talking about this right now. We're just not going to do it. So I cut it off, and I think I was a little shorter because I started to sweat. I got really hot and I was I wanted to take my mask off and breathe, right? He pulls his mask off that he had been wearing appropriately, pulled it all the way off his face, sat back in his seat like this, gets out his phone, sends an angry text message, real angrily, and then had his mask down under his nose for the rest of the class and the next class. So, and I take pictures for Seesaw. I took a picture of him and his mask is like under his lip. And I sent it to my director and I said, I'm done. I said, I've tried to build a relationship with him. Also, he was saying some really rude things under his breath about another parent in a class. And I said, I am all for building relationships and I am here if he wants to play by the rules. I'm done. He's making parents uncomfortable. He is being, and then we had that no mask Thursday, K-12, like where parents were sending their kids to school to encourage not wearing masks. 10 kids at my middle school were sent home because they refused to put masks on their face. And I said to my director, I said, why are we letting him stay? We sent home 10 children from school because they wouldn't wear masks. He will not wear his mask correctly. And as an adult who does not need to be here, I said, I'm done. So I really hope that the superintendent and the COVID task force director vote for him to be out in my favor. Because honestly, you guys, if he shows up on Tuesday and he's not wearing his mask, I am not letting him in the classroom. I'm done playing. I really wanted to try. I really wanted him to do well. And I'm just done because he is ruining this class's opportunity to have a good connecting time with their kids. And he's so volatile. So I'll let you know how it goes on Tuesday.
Wow. I don't know about the rest of you, but I listened to Ellen's situation going, thank God it's not me. I mean, this is like one of those things where, you know, like I like having the university rules sometimes because, you know, like I don't have to deal with the whole masking thing. But, and I do give positive strokes though to my students for showing up with masks and catch them being good. So, oh, Ellen, well,
and I wish when he was going, you know, he was all crabby. I wish in that moment I had said, you don't have to be here. There's the door. Like, I wish I'd had the guts, but I was trying to be diplomatic. I had 2 parents come up to me after class and they were like, you are a saint. Or, you know, bless you, you know, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm trying so hard. I'm trying so hard to be professional. And, you know, like you said, there's just these moments where you just, you get hot under the collar and it's a, you know, and I'm just like, hold it together, hold your shit together.
I'm sure that there's some, this is probably not, anyway, there's probably something about like Joan of Arc was a saint and how, you know, she was killed by the fire. So, you know, you can be a saint, but, you know, for what you're going through, Ellen, at some point, you're going to have to, you know, you're going to have to put a boundary to keep yourself from burning up. And it sounds like you're doing that though, you know, by enlisting support and shutting that door and, you know, because clearly he's seeking power, right?
Well, and this week, he, like 2 weeks ago, it sounded like he was having a good time. And this week, he just really seemed like he hated every second. It was almost like he was court ordered this week. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's real up. I mean, clearly there's something
yeah,
going on just by the way he looks and acts. But anyway,
yeah.
But thanks. Now we're 7 minutes late. So
yeah. But thank you, Becca, for coming back to Ellen on that. I never liked, you know, to leave anything undone. What a great conversation today, everyone. This was fabulous. Thank you all for sharing and just contributing. I know people really value watching our videos and all of that. So have a great week. I hope everybody has a 7+ week. Maybe I'll open up my scale to 10. You know, I'm so used to, as a researcher, having odd numbers. So you have a middle point so that neutral people can choose a 4, right? So, so I think that's where that comes from. So it's so arbitrary, Becca, you know, you do 10, you know, some people need more space to describe their emotions.
Like 1 to 5.
1 to 5.
Yeah. Then you can like have a 3 and you're like, well, middle of the road 5, 3 out of 5.
Can't have bigger than 10 because if people need to hold up fingers, like there'll be all kinds of, yeah. So, all right, everyone, have a fabulous week. If you get a lot of snow, you know, hunker in and enjoy some good hot chocolate or something. So, all right, we'll see you.